All right, remember when we told you about the Republican governor of Ohio who had the opportunity to sign a bill that would have banned transgender surgeries, chemicals, and biological males and female sports in Ohio? The Republican legislature passed it. He had a chance to sign it. He did not. He vetoed it. I don't know what the status of it is back in the legislature for overriding that veto. But Governor DeWine has now done something, I don't know how you want to describe it, halvesy measure, under the table, a response to his critics, because he has now signed an executive order that bans gender surgeries for minors, but it does allow puberty blockers and trans athletes in women's sports. Here's the Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine.
A week ago today, I vetoed House Bill 68. I believe that parents, not the government, should be making these very crucial medical decisions for the children. At that time, I also said that there are things we need to do to further protect children and adults. And some of these things that I announced that we needed to do go well beyond what is in House Bill 68. I signed an executive order just a few moments ago enacting emergency rules that ban gender transition surgeries for minors at any hospital or ambulatory surgical facility in Ohio. This ban is effective immediately. This will ensure that surgeries of this type on minors can never happen in Ohio.
So he's saying he wants to go further than the bill that he vetoed?
Doesn't make sense to me.
I don't get it. Will, what do you think?
I think this man showed an inherent weakness, a lack of spine, and actually, I guess, to amend what I'm saying, some level of courage it took to stand here and do something so incredibly immoral and irrational. I don't know what led him to this firm position he held before in vetoing a bill that is moral, that is on the right side of history, that has been done in several other states. The rationale, which he offers, is water soup weak. This should be between parents and not the state. We don't let parents amputate the limbs of their children.
Bingo.
We don't let parents put their children on heroin because they self-identify as lazy. We don't do these things because we understand that children have to be protected even by the law against irreversible bad decisions. And yet he stands here today and tries to thread this needle where, okay, we're going to stop surgeries, but you can still use chemical castration.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. So it makes me go back to, why were you so firm? It took, like he said, I'm going to veto a bill. That took some level of I said backbone a moment ago. I don't know, conviction. Somebody in his office said, hey, you should, I have conviction.
No, apparently most of his office said you should sign it. He went against everybody.
Even more. So why was he so convicted that was the right thing to do?
He got captured by the trans activists and the hospital officials. There's a huge hospital complex in Ohio that I think got in his ear and said, this is big business for us. You can't stop this.
And speaking of the hospital complex, the medical community is non-interventionist. Pills are the last resort. Surgery is the last resort. We focus on mental health first. Why not mandate mental health first? Going to a psychologist. We're talking about children. My daughter wakes up one day and says, I want to be a cow. And we are supposed to then, shove them with pills or whatever to make their dreams come true. I don't understand this. I don't understand the medical community's posture on this. And puberty blockers, by the way, you start taking them, it's very difficult to get off. We're talking about changes to a child, You can also talk about challenges with fertility in the future on things like that as well, things we don't know. By the way, last weekend we were all over this story. We had Chloe Cole on, who was a detransitioner, as well as Riley Gaines, who was involved in this bill and getting it passed in Ohio. Here's a perspective from both of them.
Parents don't have a right to abuse their children. This is no different from any form of abuse. This is the sterilization and mutilation of thousands of children happening within the state that he is being entirely complicit in. He has made the choice to continue this.
The votes are certainly there to overturn this, and I am confident and hopeful that it will be overridden in Ohio, making Ohio the 24th state to hopefully pass some sort of legislation that prevents men from competing in women's sports, and the 22nd state to prevent child surgical and chemical castration in the state of Ohio. We're so backwards as a country. And to think that some blue states want to allow
The surgeries, the ones that were banned by the governor, they're surgeries. You cannot change that once you've had a mastectomy.
Oh, it's becoming an industry.
You cannot change that.
I mean, I read an article at a local Tennessee outlet that said families are moving out of Tennessee because it's banned there to other states, and or transporting. I mean, that's what's happening. You're having a major migration of people who, and then it becomes an industry in those states that attract people.
The AMA, all the physicians associations are all in support of this. And the only argument against what we're saying right now that I can ascertain is you're a bigot. That is the only argument for this horrific medical procedure being embraced. If you don't embrace this, you're a bigot.
If you don't allow the mutilation of children, you're a bigot. That's right.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.